Hi, everyone. Good evening. I wanted to talk to you tonight about conditioning. We're all conditioned. We are conditioned based upon our genetics. What's the unit we're born with has particular characteristics and traits: height, weight, disposition, eye color, hair color, loss of hair color, the way we age. There's epigenetic conditioning, which is what gets passed down from our grandparents. That's an interesting one. The experiences of our ancestors actually get encoded in our DNA, and we are influenced by those experiences. And then, of course, there's environmental conditioning, the conditioning that we're brought up with. We learn from a very early age. Our name is the biggest one. We learn our name. We think that there's a Vincent here. In fact, that's the very first thought. Actually, before that is the thought that there's a me. That happens about 2.5 to 3 years old. When suddenly, whereas previously there was no real sense of separation, no sense of me, no sense of I. Sure, there were some biological conditionings. Uh, get hungry, we want safety, we react to environmental stimuli, we learn who our parents are, but there isn't innately a sense of me until about maybe 2.5 to 3 years old. At which point some reorganization takes place in the brain, and suddenly there's a me. But beyond that sense of me, from a very early age, our parents actually start to label us. They give us a name. And when I realize that there's a me, when we see that there's a sense of me, we buy into the story that starts with the name that we're given. So there's a story of Vincent. And our parents reinforce it at a very early age. They'll reward us. Good Vincent. Bad Vincent. Go to your room, Vincent. Eat your dinner, Vincent. What's dessert, Vincent? Happy birthday, Vincent. Do this, Vincent. Do that, Vincent. Don't do that, Vincent. It's on and on and on and on and on. And then we start learning other stuff. The story starts building, starts developing. We're taught that we're supposed to be someone and become someone. We're supposed to do well in school and get along with others and to achieve, to succeed, to adopt the rules, implicit and explicit, of our society, to adopt the storyline here in the United States, the American dream. Grow up, get a job, get married, have kids. Oh, and I bought into all of it. And the weird thing was, and I'm going to make this personal, is that, from a very early age, I knew it was all bullshit. I knew it was bullshit. But I ended up buying into it anyway because it's just so deeply ingrained. But because I knew it was bullshit, I struggled. I mean, there was a struggle. I'd say language here is tough. I say I struggle. There was a sense of struggling because there was no innate sense of becoming, that I need to become someone. And then when I did feel the push and pull towards becoming, I didn't know what to become. What do I become? Now, growing up as a child, I was a musician. Played clarinet and saxophone. Well, clarinet from the 3rd grade, saxophone from 7th grade, I believe, and I was good. I was good. And it, it was really the only thing I knew that I excelled at and enjoyed. But when it came time to go to college, ironically, because it was my parents who um, pushed me and my brothers to become musicians and to practice every day, were basically, no, you can't go to music school, which is what I wanted to do. You'll never earn a living as a musician. In retrospect, I'd say that was probably about the worst thing they could have done at the time, because it's the only thing I really loved was music. And so I struggled. I struggled in college trying to find a career. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole story of me. It's a story. The point of the story, however, is what's important. Just like you, I too adopted an idea that I need to become someone. Now, in this case, it took a long time. Eventually, at the age of 35, after several attempts at college, I eventually graduated as an undergraduate in a degree of psychology. And grad school, I finally decided, and I say I finally decided, somehow the decision was made to go back to school and get a doctorate. And I actually found a profession that allowed a sense of security so I could earn a living. But for those of you out there who happen to be college professors, you know college professors don't earn a lot of money. A lot of school teachers around the nation earn a lot more money than college professors earn. But I loved being a college professor. I loved the research. I was a natural born researcher. And so that's what I did for a long time. And then about 3 years ago, after a few different jobs, I lost my last academic position. And why am I telling you all this? Well, in part because your experiences may or may not be similar, but they overlap to some extent, I know. We identify with what we do. If you ever go to a party, one of the first questions you get asked is, what do you do? Like, that's the most important thing. Just a side note, I lived in the Deep South for a long time. For those of you out there, you can tell I do not have a Southern accent. I probably still have remnants of a New York accent. But as a New York boy moving to the Deep South, and as I got to know people and meet people, instead of asking me what I did, the first question was, what church do you go to? I thought that was very strange. And the second question was, so what do you do? Like, that was really important. What do you do? And sure enough, the conditioning seeped into the bones of this unit. And I identified so strongly with what I did. And even after awakening, several times, and clearing over and over and over again, when I lost the job, and by the way, I knew it was the wrong job for me at the time. I mean, it was over. That's a whole nother story. Maybe for another time, maybe not. But the point is it wasn't a choice of this unit. Um, there was a political environment that just didn't fit, and I knew it a year earlier than when I lost the job. But I was too afraid to leave, and I think this is really where I'm going with this. Is there was a fear. What am I going to do next? What's going to happen next? How am I going to earn a living? Well, eventually I lost the job. But I have to say, it took a while. It took, I'd say, 3 years before the conditioning around having a profession and then losing a profession finally completely disintegrated. And it was a beautiful thing. Now, it took a while, and maybe that's part of the point is you might be in situations where you don't quite resonate with your circumstances. A job, a relationship, situation. But sometimes we hold on for the wrong reasons. We hold on out of fear. I held on out of fear until I was forced not to hold on anymore, and then I still held on to fear. There was still a definition, residual conditioning that, excuse me, I got a text I got to read. Okay, it's my wife telling me she's about ready to go to Costco, so I need to wrap this up. In fact, I'm going to pause it for just a second. Okay, I'm back, sorry. And I might get interrupted again. We got to do a Costco run tonight. See, you still got to take care of business. You still got to buy food and supplies, and life goes on. Life lives itself through this thing. But you know, after the conditioning of identifying with a career and a profession, well, I got my glasses back on. I'm going to take them off because I see some reflection. This is a newfound sense of freedom. It's like, you know, in retrospect, it's like, man, what took so long? But, you know, this stuff's going to happen when it happens in its own pace. And so when you see the conditioning, it's going to be there, but just be aware of it. Just be aware of it. Aware of the feelings that arise as a consequence of the conditioning. What thoughts are associated with those conditioning? Excuse me. I lost my train of thought. Just got a text back from Janine. That's what's happening. Oh boy. So the interesting thing about it is, in this case, one of the things I always enjoyed all my life was photography. Going back to when I took a cross-country trip when I was 20. Actually, even before that, I was one of those kids that had an Instamatic camera. Do you remember those Instamatic cameras? I'm really dating myself here. And I used to walk around with that Instamatic camera all the time, and I would take photographs. I'd film whatever film I could afford to take. I got a whole box full of photographs that I took as a child. But when I was 20, I took a cross-country trip with a friend, and I borrowed a Nikon single lens reflex camera, and I was hooked. I came back with some photographs that to this day are some of my best work. But out of fear, although in the back of my head I always thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if I could be a photographer, especially like for National Geographic? But out of fear, that's not a path I pursued. Similar to music. Well, I wanted to pursue music. I think I could have succeeded at music. Maybe not as a playing in the symphony orchestra like I wanted to do, but maybe as a college professor of music, a conductor somewhere. Who knows? Point is, after all these years, when you let go of something, it allows something new to arise. And guess what's starting to arise? One of the reasons why I haven't cut a video in a while is because there's a newfound energy that's being directed towards photography. And I'm not saying I'm making a conscious choice to do it. It sometimes feels like I'm making a conscious choice. You know, especially when I'm looking at developing a website specifically for photography. I mean, I have one now already. Look it up, vjfortunato.com. But I need a better one. I need two, actually. One for the best of my work, for like a gallery sort of view, and one more for more social media related. So I'm really looking into developing a business, a logo, and I'm studying up on different techniques, mastering as best as I can Lightroom and Photoshop, because a lot of the work these days in photography is in the post-processing. Kind of like awakening. You know, most of the work of awakening is not waking up, by the way, it's in the clearing. It's like taking a picture. Yes, yes. Composition and lighting are two of the most important things in photography. If you don't have a good composition and you are taking photographs without the right kind of light, you're not going to have a good photograph. Awakening's like that too. You might spend years and years and years following a particular practice or path not to wake up, but only realize that you didn't have to wait so long. The real work is not in the awakening. In the awakening, it's in the clearing. The real work in photography these days is in the post-processing. And Lightroom and Photoshop, both Adobe products, are the two biggest post-processing software packages out there, and they work hand in hand. Where am I going with this? I don't know. It's fun. There's a newfound sense of freedom here, and that's where I'm putting my attention to. Putting it here, not as much as I used to, but I'm putting it there. And you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It's all good. It's all good. There's no fear. Sometimes a little anxiety, but that's because in order to sometimes take care of the more business aspects of that, the ego does kind of get involved. There are things that this personality resonates with, and there are things that this personality doesn't resonate with. Sales is not one of those things that resonates with this personality. Picture taking does. Photography itself does. Thinking about marketing, how to sell my work, how to sell my skills as a photographer, that requires some attention, directed attention. Bottom line, bottom line. The clearing process is one of seeing into what our conditioning is, how we're conditioned. And just because you might see it immediately doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go away, especially if it's something that has been around for a long time, embedded cellularly. It's like what you're doing is a spiritual wash, and maybe even a physiological wash in a way. Excuse me, might be time to go. Hold on a second. Got to answer a question. I'm sorry. I should have figured not to do a video late at evening when things are happening. So let me take these off again. So let me make my point and cut this thing off. Point is, take a look. What's resonating, what's not resonating. And when things are resonating or when shit happens, it's going to happen. It's what happened. You know, life in some way knew that the job I was in, the corporation I worked for, was not a fit. And although I was not the one to initiate the separation, eventually separation was initiated. It's like life was saying, hey, buddy, wake up. You're already awake. What are you doing this for? You're not happy here. This isn't where you want to be. You don't fit with the political environment here. Hey, buddy, wake up. So what happens? Life gives you exactly what you need. That's the really interesting. You are life living itself through this particular unit and those units in your unit. You are not a me. You're not a Bob or a Mary or a Joe or a Vincent or whomever or whatever you're called. You're not that. Your life itself. You're this. And it's the story of me and all the layers of the onion of me that has gotten built up over time, layer by layer by layer by layer, and all the different spheres of our lives that need to get peeled. So you can come back and see what you really are, which is just this. And even if through the living method of awakening, which I use, or some other method, you have had one of those insights and openings, and you understand it when I say, it's just this, you are just this, that doesn't mean the conditioning goes away. That's the clearing process. That's where the work is. This is where some practices are useful, meditation and mindfulness. Just awareness of the conditioning, inquiry into what is that conditioning? Whose is it? Who is this me? What is the story? You're not looking for reasons. You're not looking for answers to questions like why. Why is it this way? Why doesn't matter. Just be it. Be the conditioning. And in being and allowing awareness of it to manifest, then the conditioning weakens. And in this case, for example, disappeared. There's a part of me, just as I said that, I'm like looking. It's almost like there's an internal eye that's kind of looking. It's like, is it really completely gone? I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it might rear up again, rise one more time at some point. But I tell you, without it being as strong as it was, boy, it feels good. And you can feel good too. So I guess I'll call it quits, and I guess it's time to get ready to go to Costco. All right, guys. Thank you.